We've known for quite some time, but ladies and gentlemen, Chrystia Freeland has officially lost her mind and been certified insane. Let's get into it.
Oh, yeah!
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. Chrystia Freeland, for quite some time, has been a very widely discussed topic on this channel. When we talk about her recent Auditor General expenses of $6,000 a month for lavish things like gym memberships, supposed personal trainers, although we all know she hasn't spent a day at the gym in her life. Grooming and day spas, this is just outrageous. But now, in akin to the costs that we're seeing from the Trudeau government, Chrystia Freeland, of course, coming out saying that things have never been better in Canada and that jobs have been created, inflation is at its lowest in quite some time, and that houses are being built. And of course, now she's come up with more ways for us poor people to save some money when it comes to the grocery store. And now, in akin to Chrystia Freeland's Disney Plus statement, if you guys remember her infamous statement that, hey, perhaps Canadians should just simply cut back on their Disney Plus subscriptions and they'll save some money every month. Well, here comes another let them eat cake moment, as Chrystia Freeland now apparently is saying she's suggesting people should eat cereal for dinner to save money. So instead of going out with your significant other after a long week in work, instead of maybe getting yourself some healthy choices at the grocery store, or a nice dinner to make with your family, well, no, you should be eating garbage pencil shaving cereal every night to save on the costs. Now, I'll note too that cereal isn't exactly cheap these days, so it's really weird that such a claim would be made. Of course, people down here in the comments saying, what do you think her favorite cereal is? Cocoa Puffs? Yeah, she's pretty darn crazy. I would say so. Cereal is for the rich. Us poors are still eating $1.59 mac and cheese right out of the box, this says. As we go further down, so basically let them eat cake. Meanwhile, she spends $6,000 on personal grooming every month, which clearly doesn't work for her. She's so out of touch. I couldn't agree more. Now, the good thing is that the humorous part when we scroll down here, of course, there's a good old meme of the old World Economic Forum cereal with good old Klaus Schwab on the cover saying, eat your bugs, with a free stomach RFID included inside. That's fantastic. I think somebody should make a t-shirt out of that. But as we look too, now the Conservative Party have even tweeted out that while Liberal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland frolics through luxury grocery stores, her city is seeing the largest increase in food bank usage ever. These Liberals are not worth the cost. Now, it's funny because Chrystia Freeland, residing in Toronto, one of the most expensive cities to live in Canada, well, of course, we know that she's frolicking around the grocery store because she claims they don't own a vehicle. They walk everywhere. They're so environmentally friendly. While it says here that a projected 30% increase in demand for food charity in Toronto is compared to the year before, while up here 100,000 people are expected to turn to the food charity in Toronto for the first time this month. It also says here that more than a third of food charities that participated in the survey said that they've been forced to turn people away. People are starving in Canada. We need policy change, and fast. Now, what's really funny about that is that Chrystia Freeland, again, is very oblivious. She's very out of touch. While she touts where the state of the country is to try and save face with a sinking ship of a government, we've got this post here showing that Chrystia Freeland lies in her economic update, saying Canadians are better off now than they were pre-pandemic as wages have risen faster than inflation. I call BS on that one. Of course, they won't update us on their massive deficits or how Arrive scam was used to award government contracts. Let's take a listen to what good old Cocoa Puffs had to say.
But we also know with our economic plan, we're on the right track. We learned last week that inflation in Canada fell to 2.9% in January. That's down from 3.4% the month before.
Yet I'll just chime in to mention interest rates at the banks are as high as they've ever been in the last couple of decades. But go on, Chrystia, let's hear more.
And down from its peak of 8.1%. This is making a real difference in the lives of Canadians. This is real progress. At 2.9% in January, inflation was back within the Bank of Canada's target range. Thanks to the hard work of Canadians and Canadian businesses, We also learned that we gained 37,000 new jobs last month.
Again, folks, I hate chiming in all the time on these videos, but again, I don't want to miss any points that are being made as she's speaking. Those jobs she's talking about, again, there's no statistics as to how many of those are minimum wage jobs for the countless levels of illegal immigrants that are flooding into the country, where those jobs have taken place, and what exactly they're paying. There's no description as to whether or not these are jobs that people can actually afford to live on. It's a matter of they were created, and these could be part-time jobs to contract or semi-part-time jobs. I've got a good video coming out later on this week in terms of what all of this is doing to jobs in terms of under-the-counter pay and how it's affecting Canadians. So keep your eyes out for that, but let's let her finish up here.
That was double expectations. Today, 1.1 million more Canadians are working compared to before the pandemic. A strong labor market really matters for affordability. Wage growth has outpaced inflation for the past 12 months as of January. Real wages, wages after accounting for inflation, are now higher than they were just before the pandemic, meaning paychecks are worth more. This is progress. But we all know that many Canadians are still struggling to make ends meet, struggling to juggle all of their bills at the end of the month, and to feel confident about the future. So we really do know we have a lot more work to do to unlock a brighter future for everyone in our amazing country.
She says Canadians are still struggling, so, eat cereal and cut back on your expenses. Now, again, what she's not recognizing is the fact that the reason people are struggling is because of what they've done to our country. When you look at record inflation that they're still touting is coming down for some reason. I don't know about you guys. I haven't seen a change in price anywhere at the stores. I haven't seen housing values come down. I haven't seen anything in the market in terms of good, bad, ugly, anything beneficial. But we even see here, Chrystia Freeland says it's not the time to play partisan politics. Everyone must come together to agree with her and continue funding places like the Ukraine. So again, they don't want to talk about their deficits and they don't want to talk about what they're doing to Canada. It's give money to the Ukraine in the greatest money laundering scheme of all times. Again, let's take a look.
Now is not a time inside Canada for any partisan game playing when it comes to Ukraine. This really is a crucial moment, and it's a really tough time for the Ukrainians. Now is a time when it behooves all Canadian political leaders, including the Conservatives, to stand with Ukraine and to support Ukraine economically, including through our trade agreement. Thanks a lot.
Again, it's Ukraine, Ukraine, Ukraine. Give money to Ukraine. Let's keep pumping money into Ukraine. You know where my views stand on that. I've said not one more cent. Canada first. But then we get into what she's touting here, that things are better in Canada, that things have, in fact, improved in Canada. But when we see with people like the Liberal MP Sean Fraser, and the hypocrisy comes through on this statement at the same press conference that says we're calling BS, stop lying to Canadians.
Sean has been zooming around the country doing housing accelerator fund deals. I think.
So Sean Fraser has been zooming around the country doing housing accelerator deals. He's been doing selfies and photo ops that really just give cities funds in order to proceed through more red tape for the development of housing. Pierre Poilievre has stated in multiple videos how this actually doesn't move forward any kind of home building or how it doesn't benefit anybody. But what's really important is she says he's been jet setting around the country. Isn't this the government that says that you should be doing everything electrical, that you should be shutting up and paying your carbon taxes, that you should be using less, eating cereal, stop emitting so much carbon, get rid of your cows that fart and belch into the atmosphere, don't use your plastic straws. But no, we'll jet set around the country to take photo ops and hand out taxpayer money. That's okay.
We're at 550,000 new homes built that way.
The Housing Accelerator Fund doesn't go toward the cost of building houses. It doesn't actually lead to the construction of specific homes.
I think we're at 550,000 new homes built that way.
It doesn't get any more real than that. But of course, the Conservative Party has released an article stating just what the Housing Acceleration Fund is doing. So Trudeau's housing minister admits that not a single home has been built despite endless photo ops. This says after 8 years of Justin Trudeau, Canadians are living in housing hell. In 2022, Canada built fewer homes than we did in 1972 when the population was half of what it is today. Again, a lot of that attributes to mass immigration and illegal immigration that we're allowing into our country via places like Roxham Road. As a direct consequence of Liberals' inability to build enough or get enough houses built, the average asking rents for all residential property reached a record high of $2,178 in December, while the cost of a down payment has doubled since Trudeau became Prime Minister. Pierre Poilievre has also mentioned that in cities like Toronto, it is now taking people up to 25 years simply to save up a down payment for a home. Who can afford to do that these days? Trudeau's own Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, or the CMHC, said in September that Canada needs 3.5 million new homes by the end of the decade, but housing starts have continued to decline under the Liberal government. CIBC has said that a number of homes needed is actually 5 million. And what Trudeau's plan is to fix this housing crisis, his former immigration minister, Sean Fraser, as the Minister of Housing, who previously ignored warnings of his own staff and his reckless policies, were contributing to the housing shortage. Today in Finance Committee, Common Sense Conservative MPs asked Minister Fraser about his Housing Accelerator Fund, and he admitted that not a single home had been built as a result of it, even though it has cost the Canadian taxpayer $3.15 billion. And again, that relates back to the video clip we just saw where he says not a single home has been built. He even admitted that his flagship housing policy doesn't actually lead to the construction of specific homes. The Trudeau government doesn't understand that Canadians can't live in photo ops. On top of this, despite campaigning on the Housing Accelerator in 2021 federal election, the Liberal government did not start making agreements with municipalities to get homes built until late 2023. Now Canadian cities are among the most expensive in the world. Justin Trudeau just isn't worth the cost. Canadians deserve a common sense plan to get the housing built fast. That's why Pierre Poilievre introduced the Building Homes, Not Bureaucracy Act to increase incentives to municipalities that build homes while punishing municipalities that continue to stand in the way of development with NIMBY policies. Now, what they're talking about there, of course, is the red tape that stops the production of homes and that essentially fills the pockets of developers, but stops people from getting the homes that they need and built on a timely schedule. This is something that we've seen cities waste thousands and millions of Canadian taxpayer dollars drudging up in order to, I guess, line the pockets of friends and get contracts through friends and houses built through friends. And again, photo ops like Sean Fraser's, it's now causing a real concern. I know in the average rental in Calgary for a detached home sits somewhere around roughly $2,500 a month. Now, I took a peek. I haven't had to rent a home, fortunately, since around 2015. And the last time I actually applied to rent a home was in 2006 prior to that. So I took a look online, and the average in Calgary for maybe about an 1,100 square foot detached home with 2 bedrooms is running somewhere in the vicinity of $2,500 a month. In Toronto, it's upwards of $3,000. Vancouver, same deal, somewhere roughly around $3,000 to $4,000 in certain areas of Vancouver. The pricing is just out of control, but the problem is that the keys are in landlords' hands in order to make a profit. There's no form of control in terms of what they're allowed to charge for rent, as well as what people are able to sell for. We've seen this in Calgary, where I've talked to great extent in my streams that in the early 2000s, the average house was $250,000. And when we had a material shortage, the price shot up to $400,000. Now, my father at the time had said, I've watched the housing market for many decades. He was actually part of the crash in the early 80s where he had to sell his house for a single dollar. So I took his word at face value, where he said, look, if you look at the behavior of the housing market over the decades, when these things happen, typically once materials come back, the prices will stabilize and we'll see kind of a return to normal. Well, unfortunately, in the early 2000s under Stephen Harper, when these things took place, and again, I'm not blaming Harper, but during those years, what had happened is that developers in Calgary, at least, got their materials back, and developers started to say, if those houses are now worth $400,000 instead of $250,000, our houses are now worth $400,000. And they kind of just shot up from there and never kind of rebounded or went back to market regulars. In fact, other places of the country, like when I go back to visit Winnipeg, my hometown, where the average home when I moved away and even came back in the early 2000s was sitting around $250,000, now sits around an average of $500,000 to $600,000, depending on where you are in the city. Again, for a suburban community, that's absolutely out of control. Something needs to be done, and hopefully when Pierre Poilievre becomes Prime Minister of Canada, we see some change. We see the red tape getting cut and more houses being built. Again, offering an incentive to builders to complete projects in a desirable amount of time, and also a bonus for finishing on time or early and producing more, I think is a good motivator to get people moving rather than lining pockets with shady deals. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Has Chrystia Freeland absolutely lost her mind, or is this her just giving word salad until the next election to hopefully line her pockets just a little bit more with her $6,000 monthly expenses before leaving office? While you're here, make sure to do the usual YouTube stuff, like, share, comment. It helps get us out in the algorithm. If it's your first time here, I hope the video's earned your subscription. Make sure to click your bell and join us to get your notifications every Friday night here on the channel when we do our live streams, Friday Night Fringe, and we go over everything that's happened in the week prior, everything coming up in the week ahead, and some Q&A back and forth with our community. It all starts here Fridays at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you there, and I hope you enjoyed this video and have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.